Hello there, Year 2 children. It's Mr Yeardsley at school. Going to continue reading the book by Dick King-Smith called The Guard Dog. We read the first chapter. Do you think he'd make a very good guard dog? You think of something that he'd be good at doing if he was a guard dog? Maybe something he wouldn't be so good. Maybe something he had to learn. So, we're up to chapter 2. Nobody will buy him, said the other puppies later. That's for sure. What a racket, said the sheepdog. It made me feel quite ill, said the gun dog. A really common noise, said the guide dog. Made by a really common animal, said the show dog. Sure, said the lap dog. Do you remember who each of those were? They all stared balefully at the guard dog. The sooner he's sold, the better, they said. And that afternoon, he was. Into the pet shop walked a tall lady with a face that looked as though it had a bad smell under its nose, and a small, fat girl. I'm looking for the puppy, said the lady to the shopkeeper, for my daughter. I know nothing about dogs. Which of these would you recommend? Oh dear, she does look like she's got a bad smell under her nose, doesn't she? All of the puppies lolloped forward to the inner wire of the pen, whining and wagging and generally looking as irresistible as puppies do. All, that is, except the guard dog. He sat alone, small and silent. He was not exactly sulking, that wasn't in his nature, but he still felt very hurt. Hurt from the things the other dogs were saying about him, I should think. Nobody will buy him, that's for sure, they had all said. He resigned himself to life in a pet shop. The shopkeeper was busy explaining various virtues to the 5 pedigree puppies when the fat child, who was standing sucking her thumb, took it out with a plop. She pointed at the guard dog. Want that one, she said. Oh, that's just a mongrel puppy, dear, said the shopkeeper. I expect Mummy would prefer. Want that one? But, darling, the small fat girl stamped her small fat foot. She frowned horribly. She hunched her shoulders. With a movement that was as sudden as it was decisive, she jammed her thumb back in her small fat mouth. She wants that one, said her mother. There's the guard dog at the back. By the end of that day, the guard dog was feeling pretty pleased with life. To be sure, there were things about his new owners that he did not quite understand. It seemed, for example, that simple pleasures like chewing carpets and the bottom edges of curtains drove the lady into what he considered quite an unreasonable rage. And as for the child, she was temperamental, he thought, to say the least. There she is. Not sure how I'd feel if a puppy of mine did that. Though, at first, she'd seemed willing to play with him, she soon began to complain that his teeth were too sharp, or his claws too scratchy, or his tongue too slobbery, and had made a ridiculous fuss over a doll which had sported a fine head of hair and was now bald. Strange creatures, he thought, that night when at last all was quiet. But I mustn't grumble. I'm warm and well fed, and this seems a very fine house for a guard dog to guard. Which reminds me, it's time I was off on my rounds. Yes, off on his rounds. Ears cocked, nose a-quiver, he pattered off on a tour of the downstairs rooms. His patrol over, he settled down in a basket in the kitchen. There was plain evidence that he'd done his duty. In the centre of the drawing room, for example, there was a fine white fleecy rug, and in the centre of the rug was a bright yellow pool. Oh, I wonder what that was. Sounds like he's had an accident. In other rooms, there were other messes. Comfortable now, the guard dog closed his extremely small eyes. It had been a tiring day, and he was just drifting off to sleep when suddenly, outside the kitchen door, he heard a stealthy sound. He popped up and leapt to his feet. I think he might have left another mess there by his basket. Chapter 3. Afterwards, the family couldn't understand why their cat would never enter the house, but lived timidly in the garden shed. Who's it been scaring now? They did not know that its nerves had been shattered by the simple act of pressing against the cat flap, something it had done every day of its life. This had resulted instantly in a noise that sounded to its horrified ears like a number of cats being scrunched up in a giant mincer. Upstairs, the fat child woke screaming, and soon her mother came rushing down those stairs and stepped into something unusual at the bottom. Uke. Even then, the guard dog might still have had a house to guard, for it was difficult for them to believe that so little creature was capable of making such a ghastly noise, if only he had kept his mouth shut the next morning. But he stuck to his task, challenging everything that seemed to him a threat to the territory which it was his duty to protect. Quite early, at the sound of whistling and the chink of bottles outside the door, he woke his owners once more. And no sooner had they taken the milk in than the postman knocked, and they actually saw the guard dog in action. There they are. He's barking at the milkman with his really high-pitched, loud and piercing bark. Happily unaware of the effect of his voice upon the human ear, and mindful only of his role to give warning of the approach of strangers, the guard dog kept this up all morning. The cleaning woman, who found a great deal of cleaning to do, the paper boy, the electrician, the electricity man come to read the meter, and a door-to-door salesman were each in turn greeted by the dreadful medley of sounds that emerged full blast from the guard dog's tiny throat. Last came a collector for the RSPCA, the rattle of whose tin inspired the guard dog to his loudest, longest, and most furious outburst. "RSPCA?" screamed his distracted owner. "What about a Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to People?" And at midday, as she unscrewed the aspirin bottle, for a headache, I think, she said to her daughter, "I'm sorry, darling, but I cannot stand the row for a moment longer. It'll have to go. Will you be very upset?" The small, fat girl, her eyes fixed malevolently upon the guard dog, did not even bother to remove her thumb from her mouth. She merely shook her head violently. Don't think she liked him. Not sure it was the right family, to be fair. That afternoon, the guard dog found himself, to his surprise, in a very different kind of home. The dog's home. He could not make out what had gone wrong. What were guard dogs meant to do, if not guard? He'd only done his duty, but all he had received so far had been angry looks and angry words before finally they bundled him into the car and drove him to a strange place full of strange dogs, and they left him. There they are, in the dog's home. Bless him. Poor guard dog. From the kennel he had been given, number 25. He looked round him. There was every sort of dog in the kennel block, young and old, handsome and ugly, large and small, though none remotely as small as he. Why were they all there? "Why are we all here?" he asked the dog directly opposite him, a sad-looking animal with long droopy ears and a long droopy face. "Because," said the dog dolefully, "we are all failures." Basset hound, I think. "I don't get it," thought the guard dog. "My job is to give warnings of the approach of strangers. I've never yet failed at that." "I don't think I'm a failure," he said. "Well, you're certainly not a success," said the dog with a long face, "or you wouldn't be here. All of us are here because our owners couldn't stand us any longer." "But we'll get new owners, won't we?" "Possibly. It depends." "Depends on what?" "On whether you take someone's fancy. You just have to do whatever you're doing best. Me, I'm best at looking sad. Some people like that." In the days that followed, many people in search of suitable pets came to inspect the 20 or so current inmates of the dog's home. And when they came to the end of the range of kennels and found the smallest inhabitant, they'd without exception break into smiles at the sight of such a charming little scrap. Without exception, however, they were treated to the dreadful spectacle of the guard dog doing what he was best at, and without exception the smiles vanished, to be replaced by looks of horror as they turned away with their hands clasped on their ears. Oh dear. By the time the guard dog had been in the dog's home for a week, most of the animals had gone happily, or, in the case of the long-faced dog, sadly, away with new owners, and there were newcomers in most of the kennels. There's a long-faced dog being chosen. By the 13th day, there was only one dog left of those who'd been there when he was admitted. This was his next-door neighbour, an old and rather smelly terrier. The guard dog's attempts to make conversation with it had always thus far been met with a surly growl, so he was quite surprised when he was suddenly addressed. "You been here 13 days, little 'un, ain't you?" said the terrier. "Oh," said the guard dog, "have I?" "Ah, you coming day after I. 'Tis my 14th day." "Oh, well," said the guard dog, "try not to worry. I'm sure you'll soon be gone." "Ah," said the terrier, "I shall, today." "But how can you know that? How can you know that someone's going to take you away today?" 14 days is the limit, little 'un. They don't keep you no longer than that." "Why, what do they do with you then?" "Ain't no one told you?" "No." "Ah, well," said the terrier, "'tis all right for us old 'uns. 'Tis time to go. I shan't be sorry. You don't feel nothing, they say, but 'tis a shame for a nipper like you." "I don't understand," said the guard dog. "What are you trying to tell me?" But though he kept on asking, the old dog only growled at him, and then lay silently staring blankly out of the kennel. And later a man in a white coat came and led him away. All sounding rather sad for the guard dog. Hope he gets chosen soon, I really do. Remember, guys, I'll read you the rest of the story tomorrow. I should finish it tomorrow. Remember the school motto: if you see someone without a smile, give them one of yours, and I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully smiling. Bye-bye now.